So here's a real-time stem out of a ProTools session. So what we've done is opened the ProTools session and saved it as a new version, stem out. We're going to micro everything so we can get around the project, see it all. I'm going to make sure the locators here are around the project. I'm going to give it a very quick listen. So that's the mix. We're going to need to turn these tracks down effectively, because it may be that these tracks are clipping. Now, rather than just go through and check, the easiest way is to assume that these tracks are clipping, because when we bounce them out, it's going to cause a problem. Internally, we've got floating point summation going on. It makes no difference inside the bus structure of tools or any other door. But if anything clips here, it'll clip in the stem, and that's definitely not what we want. So we go view. Let's have a look at the other insert bank, and we pick any track, and we go search EQ. This is one of the simplest ways to just get some gain in Pro Tools. Let's go -10. Seems to work. So we go -10 dB. And the next bit's one of the boring bits. We go and copy that onto every strip. What I'm going to do is come back in a minute and mute it from buses, EQ1 band stereo. So same with this. It didn't like that because this track is mono and the others have been stereo. So we've now got a mono and a stereo iteration of this. And I'm going to need to go back to get that one right along all the way. If anyone knows of a quicker way to copy the same plugin onto every strip, I'd love to know. I could kind of do it in Logic, but then you'd actually still need to go in and adjust them all. You can't copy it with settings in, as I remember. You can put the same plugin on every strip, but not with the same setting on. So we keep going. And now I'm going to check for buses. These are all fine. These are all straight through to the mix, to the master here. There's nothing on this master apart from span to check the mix. And the PAS meters. We're looking, no input. All. So there's a bus all. Okay, that's manipulator's control, I think. So that's a delay. So we bypass it on that one. So effect returns effectively is what we're doing here. That's an effect return. Okay, so that's an effect return. We've got backing vocals. We've got 2 sets of those. So these backing vocals here, it's an American session, so background vocals. We're gonna mute this 10 dB reduction on those tracks because they're all feeding this backing vocal bus. You can see here they're routed there. Keep looking. Harmony. So, okay, that's manipulator, that's being fed from a bus. So we switch that one off, that's an effect. We don't want to reduce that because it's coming from a send which is being turned down anyway. Gen, that's another one. And aux 1, so that one needs to be switched off. So anything that's summed, so groups of backing vocals or whatever, drum buses, you know, stuff that's feeding the drum bus, turn it off. And anything that's an effects return, turn it off. Because you're either feeding something else with it. I mean, we're not going to stem these backing vocals anyway. We don't need them. What we want for the stem is the actual stems, as they were in the mix. Otherwise we'll get extra sets of backing vocals. So, okay, that's muted there, that's muted there. They're muted. They're bus returns. These are effects returns. So remember, with an effect like this, what we've got happening is, where is it? So that's delay effect. Very good it is as well. It's being fed from an auxiliary, and so the auxiliary is post fader. So wherever it's coming from, so let's have a look. That's gonna be ecosome. So where's the? So wherever it's being fed from, here's one of them. What you're going to get is an auxiliary fader, and this is after the level of this fader here. So unless this is pre-fade, which it's not, do exactly this. If this is pre-fade, then leave it on the return. So that's, I think, everything with gain as we should need it. So let's have a quick listen again. Make sure nothing's changed other than the loudness. Okay, that sounds alright. So that's got our levels to the right place, and now we're just going to select. We're going to shift select everything apart from the master channel, and then I'm going to go back in and deselect with the Apple key the backing vocals because they're bussed to here. So pay attention to the auxiliary stroke return strips here, the longer ones. And this second bank of plugins isn't visible on here as well, so watch that. That's it. So we're going to get that, and this is the locators are around the track, and it's now very, very straightforward. We go track bounce. So unusually, ProTools takes no notice whatsoever of the master fader or whatever else comes after this. This is a straight, almost direct out bus bounce from each track. We're going to keep the automation because that's important for this stem out. If we're stem mastering or for live stuff or even for mixing, additional mixing, we're going to go WAV interleaved, so it can go into any DAW. Bit depth 24, yeah, 48 is the sample frequency of the session. Leave these, get yourself a folder in a sensible place, call something sensible. So this is going to be lost mix number 2, stems. Create, open, offline, let's go. So we're going super real time, 2.9, 3 times. Doesn't seem to be a lot of activity, like on a lot of doors you'll see plugins floating about, and level meters and all sorts of things going on, but it's doing it, and it's doing it very effectively. So if you're doing this in Reaper or Logic or Cubase or Ableton, whatever you're doing this in, it's the same principle. You want all the tracks and all the auxiliary returns, all the effects returns, because if they're not there, then the mix isn't whole. But what you don't want is groups of backing vocals and the bus that they're feeding. So that's the art. You don't need to stem out the things that feed another bus. And the gain reduction is seems the simplest way in Pro Tools of getting this getting us over this. You know, a lot of us are mixing with clipping lights in the mixer there slightly. Tools doesn't tell you how much it's clipping by. Some of the doors will say exactly, and you could actually just lasso all the faders on stuff like Logic and just turn it all down. But actually, it's probably safer to do it this way anyway, because it makes you look at whether it's an auxiliary or an instrument or an audio strip or the bus structure of it. Of course, Tools, you can't quickly just grab faders and turn them down anyway. You could group it and turn it down and then regroup it, but that's a pain in the arse. And also the automation's on, so it's not going to help us in this case at all. And in many cases with the automation, and it's just impossible. So we've got that. We should now have a complete stem set of this track. And here's another tip: check. Always check what you're doing. Always check that what you're doing has worked like you think it has, because it will bite you in the arse if you don't. Here we go. There's Audacity. Download it. It's free if you've not got it. Grab everything, drop it in, and let it crunch for a wee while it renders the waveform so we can see what's happening. There we go. It's starting to emerge. Now you go view, fit vertically. So this is a really simple way to check. I've also, if you notice, I've got show clipping on. If there is any clipping, as I said, the 10 dB was a nominal. This will work. It works pretty much the most of the time I've ever tried this. It will show red, so you'll know that you've clipped something. If it shows red, go back and go turn all of those plugins down another 2, 3, whatever you think dB, until you repeat this process here and you get no clipping. So there's no red bits showing in any of these waveforms. And then we'll give it one more check to see that the mix is still intact through the stems. No, there's no bus mastering on here. There's no bus compression. There's nothing. All there is in here is the stems that feed what then was bus compressed and mastered. So it's a raw kind of mix from the faders to the mix bus. It's exactly what you need to stem master. You'll note as well that the level here is pretty low. We've got headroom. That's because we've turned everything down. That's good. That's also good. I'm not too fussed if there's clips. What I'm fussed about is that everything's in sync and there's no red clipping bits here. And that's fine. And that's what you need to do. You need to get hold of that and zip it and send it wherever you go. So that's the stem master. If you're doing this for extra mixing, it might be good to give whoever's mixing it some more options, because your effects are embedded on the plugins here. And it's a very good idea to do that again into a separate folder. Just repeat now, because the levels are good. You go track, where is this? Bypass inserts all. I'm not going to do it because it will bypass. So some of them are bypassed here already, and you can't get that structure back very easily, so I don't want to do that. But track, bypass inserts all. This will switch all your plugins off, and then repeat the whole thing again. Exactly. You'll get double layer of effects and stuff. It doesn't matter. Whoever's mixing, your mix engineer will be able to go, right, okay, I've got the dry version of the vocal. I can recompress and EQ that because there's a problem with it in the mix that you've established already. So that's for additional mixing rather than pure stem mastering, when we're going, right, the mix is fine, the effects are fine, but let's turn the vocals up. Or usually that's the sort of thing you want. Extra lead vocal, kick drum, definition between the kick and the bass, differentiating those two, some EQ compression on top of what's in there, that sort of thing for stem mastering. So there you go, live, real time. Hope that's helpful.